Ever catch yourself thinking, if I just made like a little more money, then I'd finally be happy?
Yeah.
We're kind of diving into that whole idea today, but with a twist. What if the best return on your money isn't, more money? What if it's something else entirely?
Yeah, that's a fascinating idea. Like, it makes you think about, all those things we believe about money and happiness and how they're like connected,
Totally. We're using Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money, to guide us, specifically Chapter 7 on freedom.
Okay.
Housel argues that, get this, true wealth, like it isn't really about how much you have in the bank, it's about what it actually buys you.
And he makes a really strong argument, by the way, for freedom being that ultimate thing, that prize,
Yeah.
See, most of us, we think about wealth leading to happiness, and it's like really straightforward way, right?
Yeah.
More money equals more happiness.
Yeah, more money, more problems, right? No, but here.
Oh, yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, way more complicated than that.
It is. It's like that old saying, right? Money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a yacht big enough to sail right up next to it.
We're all looking for that loophole, right?
Exactly. But what if happiness, what if it's not actually about the stuff you buy, but the amount of control you have, in your own life?
Okay.
There's this psychologist, Angus Campbell. He did this really interesting research on this whole thing.
He found that happiness, it's less about things like your income, those objective circumstances, and more about feeling in control of your own life. You know what I mean?
Now that you mention it, I do remember Housel, he quotes Campbell in the book. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. He said, having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of the objective conditions of life we have considered.
Right. I mean, powerful stuff.
It's huge.
Makes you really rethink, doesn't it, what's important? It's not just about getting more. It's about having that agency,
So why do you think that is? Why is this sense of control such a fundamental part of our well-being?
Well, I think it's because autonomy and choice, they're kind of like built into us,
Right.
We're not supposed to just go through life feeling like, I don't know, like robots or something.
Yeah.
We crave that ability to make our own decisions, whether they're big or small, about how we use our time, how we use our energy. And when we don't have that, that's when the stress creeps in, the dissatisfaction, even if from the outside, we look successful.
It's like that feeling when your boss tells you you have to work late, and suddenly, even if it's a project you like, it feels like a chore. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like you being forced, even if it's something you'd normally choose to do.
Right.
That feeling can really take away from your sense of well-being. It all comes back to autonomy, that feeling of control.
So where does money fit into all of this? Is it about buying our way out of those situations?
That's a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Housel argues that the real value of money is in its ability to buy back your time and your options, which gives you more of that control we're talking about.
Yeah, he uses some really relatable examples in the book, even having a little bit of savings can be life-changing. Imagine being able to take a day off when you're sick and not even thinking twice about your paycheck.
Right.
That's freedom right there.
Absolutely. Or think about this. You're looking for a new job, but you can't afford to take a pay cut, or maybe a less stable opportunity just feels too risky.
Yeah.
Having some money saved up, that could mean the difference between taking a job you don't really want and waiting for one that really excites you.
Right. It's kind of like those golden handcuffs people talk about, but instead of being stuck in some high-paying job that drains your soul, you're free to move on when it feels right, when you feel right.
Yeah. And it's not just about the big things like that. Even just having 6 months of expenses saved, that can give you the confidence to speak your mind at work, to be honest, because you have a safety net.
Oh, for sure. That kind of security can make a world of difference, not just at work, but in every part of your life. You're free to be yourself, the real you, without being afraid of what might happen.
Right. It's about making sure your financial well-being and your overall well-being are on the same page.
So it's not about being rich enough to buy a private island or something.
No.
It's about being, rich enough to have options, to design a life where you have control over your time, how you feel, your happiness, all of that.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about realizing that money, it's just a tool, It helps you get those things, but it's not the end goal in itself.
Speaking of designing your life, around what really matters to you, Housel's story about wanting to be an investment banker, that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
Here's this guy who's convinced he's found the secret to the good life,
That's such a good example of everything we've been talking about, too.
So he gets this amazing summer internship at this investment bank, and he thinks he's living the dream, right?
Yeah.
Loved the work, but
The lifestyle, though,
the lifestyle was a different story.
totally different.
The hours were crazy. The pressure was intense. It wasn't the fulfilling experience he thought it would be.
It's like they say, right?
Mhm.
Be careful what you wish for.
Right.
But it also shows this really interesting thing in psychology. They call it reactance.
Reactance. Okay, I'm like hooked now. You got to break this down for me.
Okay, so basically it's this natural resistance we have to being controlled, even if it's something we actually enjoy. Remember that whole having to work late thing?
Uh-huh.
Same idea.
So you're saying, like, even if you love what you do, if it feels forced on you, it's just not the same?
Think about it. It's like someone telling you that you have to eat a big piece of cake.
Okay, yeah.
Doesn't sound so good anymore. As humans, we do better when we feel like we have choices, even in our free time,
Yeah.
And when that gets messed with, even something fun can feel like a drag.
Which makes you wonder why so many of us are still stuck on this treadmill, like working more hours, buying more stuff. Are we even any happier? I don't know.
It's like we've bought into this idea of what matters, and maybe it's not even true.
And it's not like we're making less money.
No, not at all.
In fact, most of us are making way more.
Right.
It's just that we want more, too.
Exactly. And that's what Housel calls the American paradox. It's kind of a catchy title, isn't it?
It really is. It sounds like a documentary or something.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a very real thing.
Okay, so what is it? What's, like, the paradox part?
So basically, it's a country we're wealthier than ever, materially speaking, but our happiness levels, they haven't really changed much since, like, the 1950s, which is, when you think about it,
It's kind of wild.
kind of wild, right?
We've got all this stuff, bigger houses, nicer cars. Are we really not any happier than our grandparents were back then?
That's the paradox.
Yeah.
And, Housel, he says it's because in our rush to get more and more, we've kind of traded our time for things.
Yeah.
We get a bigger house, but that often means a bigger mortgage too,
Right.
which means working longer hours, more stress, less time for family, for hobbies. It's like a trade-off that we make without even realizing it.
And it's not like everyone's just scraping by, income-wise. I mean, back in 1955, the average family income was like $29,000 adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
Today, it's over $62,000.
Right. So we're making more,
Mm-hmm.
but the pressure to keep up, it's intense.
Oh, it's worse than ever. It's like, thanks to social media and everything, it's not even keeping up with the Joneses anymore.
Oh, gosh.
It's like keeping up with, like, I don't know.
The Kardashians.
Yes, the Kardashians were constantly seeing these perfect lives, and it makes you feel like you need to be earning more, buying more, doing more.
And even when you do reach a certain level, there's always another level, It never ends.
It never ends. Housel uses house sizes to show this, actually.
Oh, yeah.
In 1950, the average house was 983 square feet. By 2018, it had more than doubled to 2,436.
More space, more stuff, but is there more time to enjoy it?
Right. And then there's work, too, right? Because it's not like everyone's working in a factory anymore. It's a whole different ballgame now.
That's such a good point. And it's something Housel talks about, using the example of John D. Rockefeller.
Rockefeller, like the oil guy. What does he have to do with all this?
Well, so he was obviously incredibly successful, but he's also known for being very thoughtful, contemplative.
Okay.
Like, he believed in the power of just thinking. He would spend hours alone in thought.
Interesting. So he was all about downtime.
He understood that, real productivity, it's not about constantly doing stuff.
Yeah.
It's about strategic thinking.
Which seems almost impossible these days.
Right.
Everyone's so busy all the time.
Exactly. And that's where I think things get really tricky, especially for people who don't work in traditional jobs anymore.
Because you're always on, right?
In Rockefeller's time, you clocked in at the factory, you clocked out, and that was it.
Right.
But today, work follows you everywhere.
Your phone, your laptop, it's like you're never really off the clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's this writer, Derek Thompson, he said, the modern factory is not a place at all. It is the day itself.
Wow.
Isn't that a powerful thought?
It is.
Your mind is always kind of like on, even when you're not technically working.
Which makes it even harder to relax, to create those boundaries, to have time for things that actually fulfill you outside of work, right?
Absolutely. And it all ties back into that sense of control.
Or rather, the lack of it.
Yeah. Even if you're making more money, if you're tethered to your job 24/7, it's exhausting.
So then what's the answer? If more money doesn't equal happiness, like what does? What's the secret?
Well, I don't think there's a single answer. But there are definitely some common themes that come up when you look at the research on happiness.
Okay.
Housel mentions this gerontologist, Carl Pilmer. He interviewed hundreds of older people, asking them about their biggest life lessons.
So people who've lived long enough to really see what matters, what really matters.
And it's interesting, not a single person said that wealth was the key to happiness.
Not a single one. I guess that retirement yacht's going to have to wait, huh?
Right. Really makes you think. What they did talk about were things like, strong relationships, having a purpose, spending time with people they loved, like all that good stuff.
It's like we get so caught up in chasing happiness, we forget about the things that actually make us happy.
It's easy to do that these days. But those human connections, that sense of belonging, that's what really matters at the end of the day. And like Housel says, money can't buy those things, but it can, help create the space for them.
No, it's not about like swearing off money or anything.
No, not at all.
It's more about being thoughtful.
Yeah. Asking yourself, is this job, this thing I want to buy, this way I'm living, does it actually line up with what I care about?
Because we have more control than we think we do, right?
Absolutely. We can actually design our lives. It's just we have to be aware of the choices we're making along the way.
Which brings us back to that idea of controlling your time, right?
Exactly.
That's the real payoff.
It's about using money as a tool so you can live a life that's, rich in the ways that actually count.
This has really got me thinking. Like, I need to reevaluate some things in my own life.
I think that's great. It's easy to just get stuck in the day-to-day, and you forget to just stop and ask, is this really working for me?
So for anyone listening who's maybe feeling the same way, what would you say to them? Where do they even start?
I think a good place to start is just to ask yourself, if money was no object, how would I spend my time? Don't overthink it. Just see what comes up.
I love that. So you're saying like dream big and then figure out how to get there.
Exactly. Once you can see what that ideal life looks like, you can start taking steps to make it happen, even small ones.
It's about taking control, right?
Yes.
Remembering that we have the power to make choices.
You said it. You're not just along for the ride. You're the one driving.
This has been such a great conversation. Lots to think about. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. What's one small thing you can do this week to create more of that freedom, that control that we've been talking about? Maybe it's making time for something you love, talking to your partner about what's important, or even just saying no to something you really don't want to do. Whatever it is, remember, you have a choice.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming a Millionaire in 5 years. Remember, every small step you take today brings you closer to your millionaire goals. If you found value in today's video, please give us a thumbs up and share it with someone who's also ready to change their financial future. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's turn those dreams into reality. See you next time.